Last Sunday after the service, I ran into the daughter of a church member. She said, my dad sent me a picture from the church bathroom. It was great. To which I responded, what? What kind of church are we running here? The truth is that grace takes us. Grace doesn't simply save us, but grace takes us and molds us into the people that God has created us to be. This grace doesn't leave us where we are, but it transforms us. It changes us from outsiders to insiders, from feeling excluded to feeling like members of a community. It can take our old and stale habits and turn them into something new and creative, and it can take our fear and turn it into trust. That's what it means to be transformed by grace. And that was, by the way, the poster that the dad sent his daughter from the church bathroom. So we're talking about this transformative grace of God throughout this month. And today, to do so, we're going to be using a parable. A parable is a short story, usually in our case, a short story by Jesus. A parable might not always be true, but it's always very true. It might not have ever actually happened, but instead it conveys some deeper truths that maybe we wouldn't be able to do without it being in narrative form. And so today, we're going to be going over that parable that John read just a moment ago from Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30. And a lot of times we kind of jump around. We look at this verse, we look at that verse. Today, we're just going to plant ourselves right there in Matthew 25. So who knows? You might even want to open up a Bible, maybe a paper copy in front of you, maybe an electronic copy that you've brought in with you or that you like to access on your phone. But, you know, as always, we'll be using the screen so that we can all stay together. But I just wanted to give you a heads up that we're going to stay there today. We're going to plant ourselves directly in Matthew 25. And the reason why we're going to stay there today is because some parables require zero explanation. You kind of say the short story, and we all kind of get it, and we move on. But this one feels a little bit different. This one feels like it needs just a little bit more explanation. So we're going to plant ourselves there. We're going to stay firmly in Matthew 25 today, and it all begins like this. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who is leaving on a trip. Now, all metaphors fall flat at some point. In this case, kind of right off the bat, there are some issues here. The kingdom of heaven is like a man. How can a kingdom be like a man? Well, a kingdom can only be like a person if that person is the king. In that case, the kingdom is not like the king, but the kingdom is exactly like the king because the kingdom is the king's. But in this case, it's a metaphor, it's a simile. The kingdom of heaven is only like a man who happened to be leaving on a trip. So, as this man was preparing to leave on his trip, he gathered together 3 of his servants, and he said to each one of them, look, I'm going to give you something different. You're each going to get a different number of valuable coins. And in fact, if you were to open up a Bible, you would probably see that this parable is labeled something like the parable of the valuable coins or the parable of the bags of gold or something to that effect. In reality, this parable is not really about those coins. This parable is about something different. We'll get to that in just a moment. But as this man is preparing to leave for his trip, gathers together his servants, gives each one a different number of these valuable coins. Now, on the surface level, that might not seem very fair to give each servant a different number of these valuable coins, but we see what's motivating this master to treat each one of his servants in a different fashion, because we read, he gave to each servant according to that servant's ability, then he left on his journey. So he knew that each of his servants could handle a different number of coins. He knew that one servant could handle 5 coins. He knew that one servant can handle 2 coins. And he knew that one servant could handle 1 coin. And I'm going to fight the urge to say only 1 coin, because even one of these coins, literally called a talent, was worth 10,000 denarii, and a denarii was worth a day's wages. 10,000 days' wages, at least, in the hand of each of these servants. 50,000 days' wages in the hands of the one servant. That means that even the servant who received one of these valuable coins held 50 years of wages in his hand with that one coin. I don't even want to do the math for the person who was holding the 5 valuable coins in his hand. This is a tremendous responsibility that's placed in each of these servants' hands. And I'm calculating this because even though in the ancient Roman Empire there was no conception of a weekend, depending on the administration, they had quite a few holidays. And so in some administrations, there would be about 200 working days per year. There's a TikTok trend several months ago asking guys how often they thought about the Roman Empire. For me, it's like a lot. I think about the Roman Empire a whole lot. I don't know how many guys out there thinking about the Roman Empire a lot. Yeah, I know, I see some. We're thinking about that Roman Empire. Some of us just do so professionally. But anyways, each of these servants took their different amounts of valuable coins, and they each did something with them. Pretty quickly, the one who had 5 coins turned that into 10. The one who had 2 coins turned that into 4. Raise your hand if you want a financial advisor that can double your investments like that. All right, and if you're not raising your hand, what are you doing? Are you sleeping? Are you waiting for somebody who can triple your investments? Have you gotten duped by that email with the prince from a faraway land who can 10x your investments? I don't know. But look, if we ran into people like these ones in this particular story, we should hire them on the spot to be our financial advisors, and we would definitely volunteer them for the church finance team. Ain't that right, Chris? We would lifetime appointment to the church finance team if you can do this with the resources that you have been given. Again, though, they're all given a different amount, and so it goes to show you that in God's economy, it's not what, but how. You see, each of these 2 servants, the one who went from 2 to 4, the one who went from 5 to 10, they're both given that coveted title, that coveted reception of, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." Did you know that's where that phrase comes from right here in this particular passage? It has to do with the wise use of the resources that we have been given. I love getting to officiate funerals and getting to use that phrase without fingers crossed behind my back or having to lie through my teeth or anything like that. No, I wouldn't do that. In fact, we should all live our lives in such a way that I don't need to lie at your funeral. But no, seriously, I do love doing those funerals whenever we're all in agreement that we should say about this person, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." Look, each servant is given a different number of resources. And God is not looking at, nor is the master looking at exactly how many they end up with. It's not the what, but it's the how they've used them, and the fact that each of these servants has done something very, very wise with the investments with the resources that they've been given, and how they have invested those particular resources. It kind of goes to show you that there's a difference between responsible versus wise. You see, it would be responsible to simply care for the resources that we have been given, but it's much wiser to make investments, ones that last. You know that there's a third servant in this story, right? He dug a hole in the ground and planted his resource there. That's an odd investment strategy. You should not hire him to be your financial advisor. And if you hear of anyone who is investing like this, let us know so that we don't invite them to be a member of the church finance team. This is not a wise investment. It's one thing to be responsible. This man was responsible. He didn't lose what he had been given, but he didn't use it in a very wise way. There was no return on investment. He simply kept it. And so it is responsible to simply bury a hole in the ground and dig a hole in the ground and bury your resources there. It is responsible because chances are you won't lose it so long as you can remember where you put it, and as long as you don't run into any marauding bands of pirates with an X marks the spot treasure map. Your resources are going to be safe buried there in the ground. You're still acting responsibly, but you're not acting wisely. And so the master confronts this particular servant and has to tell him, like, you couldn't even put it in the bank? Gotten a little bit of interest. The interest rates aren't great, but at least it would have been something in addition to that one coin that I had given you. And yet that servant's response is telling. He says, here, you have what's yours. Essentially what he is saying is, I take no further responsibility for this. Take it back. I didn't want this. I couldn't handle this to begin with. How many of you have ever heard that phrase, am I my brother's keeper? You've probably heard that phrase before, right? It's recorded in Genesis. After Cain kills his brother Abel, he says, am I my brother's keeper? Well, he was supposed to be. He was supposed to care for his brother. He took no responsibility, but in reality, he was very responsible because the blood of his brother was on the ground. He should have taken responsibility for that, but he didn't. And that's exactly what this particular servant is doing here by saying, here, you have what's yours. He's saying, I take no responsibility. I can't handle this. I didn't want this in the first place. And here's the real motivating factor for him throwing up his hands, saying, it's not for me. He says, so I was afraid. How many of us are at our worst whenever we're afraid? How many of us have made decisions that are outside of what we know our character to be when we're afraid? Yes, we surely do make some strange choices whenever we are in that place of fear. We go from wise to, at best, responsible in those particular situations. But I've got another question for you. Did you know that the sermons of the founder of Methodism, John Wesley, are some of our doctrinal standards? He says on the matter, gain all you can by common sense, by using in your business all the understanding which God has given you. You should be continually learning from the experience of others, from your own experience, reading and reflection, to do everything you have to do better today than you did yesterday, and see that you practice whatever you learn, that you may make the best of all that is in your hands. We're not called to act out of fear. We're not called to simply be responsible with what we've been given, but we're called to be wise and to be trusting of what God has given us. But so many of us take what we've got, and instead of focusing on a mindset of abundance, we go with one of scarcity. And there's a big difference between scarcity and abundance, because you see, abundance says, wow, I've got 5 coins. I can turn that into 10. Abundance says, I've got 2 coins. I can turn those into 4. But scarcity says, I've only got 1 coin. I'd better hide it. I'd better keep that one and just make sure that I don't lose that particular coin. Big difference between scarcity and abundance. It can affect our entire outlook, our entire mindset whenever we focus on what we don't have rather than what we do have. Again, even that one single coin is worth 50 years of wages. Each servant was given a tremendous amount. Two of them could see that. The one could not. But again, he was afraid. And so we see that fear is transactional, but trust is relational. I know that it's a common phrase to say, fear the Lord, but I need you to know that you're not actually supposed to be afraid of God. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The phrase really means to respect God. Whenever we act out of a place of fear, we go to that place of scarcity. But whenever we act out of a place of trust, not as an unfaithful master, but as a loving parent, then we go to the place of abundance. So the statement of fact is that God has trusted us. God has trusted us, but the question is, do we trust God? Or maybe even a better question would be, will we trust God with what we've been given? Are we going to go to the place of scarcity, or are we going to go to that place of abundance? Are we going to act out of the trust of a loving parent, or are we going to go to the place of a fearful master? The truth is that God can transform our fear through trust in him. But look, because trust is a relational term, it's challenging to show it. How do you quantify a relationship? How do you quantify something like trust? Well, as followers of Jesus, one of the main ways that we show our trust in God in tangible ways that we can truly reflect upon and measure over the course of our lives is in how we act in generosity. You see, we've got this opportunity in front of us to show that we aren't afraid, but to show that we trust God, to show that we're not living out of a mindset of scarcity, but we're living out of one of abundance. And you've got that opportunity not only every time we gather. Look, opportunities are going to be, galore in this holiday season, this year-end season, but you've got this opportunity next week. Because next week, whenever we gather together, we're going to make commitments for how we're going to support the ministry of the church over the coming year. Will we be afraid, or will we trust God? Will we act out of a mindset of scarcity, that I only have this, or will we act out of a mindset of abundance to say, wow, God has blessed me. I can't wait to bless others. The choice is for all of us. Let's choose trust over fear. Let's choose abundance over scarcity. And right now, let's pray. God, we thank you so much. We thank you so much for the opportunities that you've put in front of us. Each and every single one of us has been entrusted by you with certain resources. So, Lord, we pray that we would use them well so that we could, in fact, be told, well done, my good and faithful servant. Take us from scarcity to abundance. Take us from fear to trust in you. And as we do so, we join our voices together in the name of the one we trust, who taught us to pray, saying, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.